I'm going to go ahead and get started. I shared this earlier, and I just cannot shake it. I feel like I really, really, really am going to explode if I don't share this. So you've heard, like right now, it's like the big thing to find out your genealogy, right? Like it's huge with Ancestry.com and all of those other things, right? It's really, really a big, you can even get it done for your animals. Like you can find out about your animal's ancestry, like what all breeds make them up, so to speak. And it's the same thing, I actually gave my dad that for Christmas last year, and it confirmed what we had thought. But there's a different kind of genealogy. Let me see here. Let me just look here real quick. Yes, I had it done for my dad. But there's a different kind of genealogy that I'm actually going to talk about. And it's your spiritual genealogy. And I'm guessing everyone has a spiritual genealogy if they want to acknowledge it or not. I believe that everyone has one. So I shared this and I feel like I've got to share it again. I just have to share it here in Facebook world because it's such a huge part of who I am today. So basically, I'm just going to jump right in because I didn't rehearse this. I did pray before I came on, but it's not like anything's rehearsed or anything. So I'm just going to jump in. Okay, so when I was a young child, I had a wonderful mother and father. I had 2 older brothers. I was a happy little girl. And, but we were not at all a spiritual family. Like we didn't have, hey Donna, we didn't have a Bible out in our home. We did not pray together as a family or pray. And the only time, unfortunately, that I ever heard the Lord's name was if it was being taken in vain. That's just the way it was. So anyhow, sorry about that. I should have put that on airplane mode. But so anyhow, my father, who has the biggest heart in the world and the most wonderful man in the world, there was a man at his work who had been kicked out of his house by his wife because he was an alcoholic and he basically was homeless. He was homeless. And so what happened was my dad asked my mom, and this is very unusual for my mom to have agreed to this, but my dad asked my mom if he could come and live in our home until he could get back on his feet. And this is so not like my mom, but my mom agreed to it. So even though this is where I believe God prepares people's hearts. So God, in my opinion, and I believe he had prepared my mom's heart because this was so not something that she would do. You know what I mean? So he had evidently opened up her heart to be ready to welcome this, because when my dad asked my mom, she was like, sure, and we had a 3-story house and we had a basement, a huge basement, and it was partially finished. And so he stayed down there. And I'm not sure how long he stayed with us, but I do know he was with us long enough. For Christmas, that was our first real Christmas tree we ever had. He brought that home. That was the first real Christmas tree we ever had. Hey, Bobby, was Chuck. Do you remember Chuck, Bobby, that lived with us in our basement? He brought our first Christmas tree to our home. And so I know he was there at Christmas time, and I know he was there in the summer because I remember, like, we had a built-in pool, and he lost his false teeth one time in the built-in pool. True story. So anyhow, getting back on course here, just to kind of give you a little feedback. I was very young, so I'm not sure how long he lived with us. Bobby, do you know how long he lived with us? I know he gave us our first real Christmas tree, and he lost his false teeth in the pool. So I know he had to have been there in the summer and during Christmas time. So anyhow, this is the really cool thing. I loved Chuck. I absolutely adored this man. And I remember my mom would let me go with him in his car all the time. And I remember one time I went to his house and I met his daughters, and he was just the kindest man. Him and my dad, I could see they both had the same sweet, kind spirit about them. And so I remember this homeless man who was an alcoholic living in our basement. I would go down and I would visit him, and I would sit on his chest and everything, and we'd play and we'd laugh and giggle and all that kind of stuff. At no time did I ever have any fear for this man. And then the craziest thing, I would always give him a hug and a kiss goodnight. I gave him a hug and a kiss, and I was going to bed, and I said goodnight. And he said, now make sure you say your prayers. Well, I did not know what that meant. I had no idea what prayers meant. Say your prayers. I didn't know what that was. So I said to him, I said, I don't know what that means. What does that mean? And so then he told me about Jesus. This amazing man who was homeless, living in our basement, was the first person to tell me about Jesus. And I have searched for him. I can't find him. I don't know if he's still living or not. But he taught me my first prayer that I ever learned, and it was, now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And I remember every single night from that night on, I said my prayers. Didn't know exactly what it all meant, but I will never forget that as long as I live. And there's so much more to the story, but that is just part of my spiritual genealogy that I wanted to share. Like, we all have our family genealogy, but then there's also a spiritual genealogy. And I will love him and have him in my heart my whole life. This man was so great. And so just think, if God can use a homeless alcoholic to tell a little girl about Jesus, don't ever, ever think that you're not good enough, that God can't use you, because he can and he will. Just open your heart up, ask him to show you. It's a beautiful thing and such an honor and privilege to be used by God. I'm telling you, I wish I could find Chuck Walters. That was his name. Great man. And I know that it's because of him that my name is written in God's book. Anyhow, I just wanted to share this with you guys. I love you. I didn't read comments intentionally while I was sharing this because I just want to make sure I got through it. Oh, thanks, Donna. I'm sorry you couldn't hear me. Maybe if you play back, you'll be able to hear me. I love you too, Gina. So anyways, I just really had this on my heart, like I'm exploding. There's so much more that I could share. It's crazy. Okay, I'll just share one more because this is so precious to me. And after Chuck moved out, like I know he moved out, this is adding on to my spiritual genealogy. I was in elementary school, and there was this girl, her name was Lori Richardson. Isn't it amazing how I can remember these names for people who were in my life for just a season. I can remember the first and the last name. So her name was Lori Richardson, and we went to elementary school together. And I know Chuck was gone, and then she said to me one day, she asked me what church she wanted to know what church me and my family went to, and I said, well, we go to Mount Rainier Christian Church, which was a lie, because we didn't go to church. We didn't go to church. My grandmother went to that church, and my parents were married in that church, but we did not go to church. And this is such a God thing, because she said to me, really? That's what church I go to. I've never seen you there. Major busted. Major busted. And so then I had to come clean and say, well, if we went to church, that's the church we would go to, blah, 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 blah. So unbeknownst to me, she went home and she told her parents all about me at school, and that's the church I would go to if I went to church, the church that her family goes to. The next day she came to school, Lori Richardson came to school and said, guess what? My parents said, if it's okay with your mom and dad, you can go to church with us every Sunday. I was so excited. And so they're part of my spiritual genealogy. So this family, the Richardsons, lived to come get me. I was in a different neighborhood. They had to leave their neighborhood, go out of their way to my neighborhood to pick me up, to go back to take me to church with them. And I went to church with them, I know, for a couple of years. I remember I got baptized and accepted, Jesus as my personal Savior in the church and everything. And so I know when I was baptized, I was like 11. I think I was like 11 years old. So the Richardsons are part of my spiritual genealogy. So I've got Chuck Walters, and then I've got the Richardsons, who are also part of my spiritual genealogy. And then there's my grandmother. My grandmother actually did go to church, and when I got my driver's license, I just adored my grandmother always. I used to drive and pick her up, and we'd go to church together. I had no clue what was being said, and I had no clue what those hymns meant, except for there was a lot of blood in them. I just knew it was about the blood, and they were happy about the blood. And so I still didn't have that. I was searching, but I still didn't have that, I got it, that light bulb moment. So I actually never really got that light bulb moment. I'm going to fast forward here until I moved to South Carolina, the Bible Belt, and I went to a Bible study here. I've been doing Bible study now probably over 15 years. It's my anchor. It's my strength. It's what keeps me grounded. But it was after we moved here and I started going to Bible study that, and spending time alone with God every single day was when I really started to grow and really started to understand my faith. And I'm just so thankful that God never let go of that little girl all those years ago who, through Chuck, once he got a hold of me, God never let me go. He kept me in his hands. And throughout my life, he would grow me and bring me closer to him. And it's an amazing thing. And I just cannot tell y'all enough. If you don't have Jesus in your life, you need him. You know why you need him? I am a person of peace, of love, and of joy. And that is not from my flesh. That is because of Jesus. I don't stress. I don't worry. I don't freak out. I'm even keel. I believe all things will work out for the good, no matter what. So I was just burning up with this. I just had to come on here and share it with you. And it just wouldn't let me go until I did. So I hope that y'all have a beautiful Saturday evening and the rest of your weekend. And I thank you for listening. I really do. And you are welcome to share this. And I love y'all very much. And I hope that you have a very blessed evening. Good night.